Over the weekend, the U.S. military shot down several supposed UFOs, so everyone is wondering what the heck is going on, if China is getting ready to invade or attack, or if it's aliens. I have a feeling that there's something else going on here, and so do a lot of other people. Project Bluebeam was trending on Twitter last night. If you're not familiar with that, you're definitely going to want to stay tuned. Here's National Security Director John Kirby starting the scare.
So I can confirm that the Department of Defense was tracking a high-altitude object over Alaska airspace in the last 24 hours. The object was flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet and posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight.
Wow. We better check in with CNN to find out the real story.
Interesting. This is kind of unusual that these pilots saw different things, and that is sort of, I guess, adding to the mystery of all this.
Yeah, not even the pilots apparently were really able to identify what they saw. And just to take you back for a sec, on Thursday, the U.S. defense officials sent F-35 fighter jets up to try to figure out what this object was that was flying around near Alaska. Those pilots, we have learned, have given very conflicting accounts of what they actually experienced, with some pilots saying that the object interfered with the plane's sensors, other pilots saying that they didn't really experience that, other pilots saying that when they looked at the object, they could identify no identifiable propulsion system, and they did not know how it was actually staying in the air.
It's filled with helium. It's a gigantic helium balloon, so it doesn't have a propulsion system, of course. Now, if you're not familiar with Project Bluebeam, oh, you're gonna love this. Here is New York Times economist Paul Krugman openly discussing essentially what the elitists planned or discussed as a way to, well, let's just say distract the general public and justify massive government expansion and spending.
If we discovered that space aliens were planning to attack, and we needed a massive buildup to counter the space alien threat, and really inflation and budget deficits took secondary place to that, this slump would be over in 18 months. And then if we discovered, whoops, we made a mistake, there aren't actually any space aliens.
So we need Orson Welles, is what you're saying.
No, there was a Twilight Zone episode like this in which scientists fake an alien threat in order to achieve world peace. Well, this time we don't need it. We need it in order to get some fiscal stimulus.
Or to justify more hyperinflation and distract from the utter failure of an administration that old Joe is in charge of. And by the way, Paul Krugman didn't just come up with this idea off the top of his head. He put a lot of thought into it.
I actually have a serious proposal, which is that we have to get a bunch of scientists to tell us that we're facing a threatened alien invasion. And in order to be prepared for that alien invasion, we have to do things like build high-speed rail and
pass the Green New Deal, right? No, this is not his original idea. In the 1960s, a book was published called The Report from Iron Mountain, claiming to be a secretly leaked document from an elite think tank that outlined how world peace would be bad for the economy. And if the military-industrial complex slowed down too much, if the world got too peaceful, that they would have to jumpstart it again through false flags, and they also proposed faking an alien threat. Later, the author claimed that it was just satire and it was meant to raise awareness about the military-industrial complex and their lust for war and the money that it makes, but others believe that him claiming that it was just satire was just a cover-up because they believe that it was real. Here is Ronald Reagan, President Reagan at the United Nations, basically saying the same thing.
Antagonisms of the moment. We often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet I ask you, Is not an alien force already among us?
No, those are just weather balloons, sir. And back in the late 90s, the Washington Post published this article where they admitted that during the first Gulf War over in Iraq, the CIA planned or discussed a plan where they would project an image of God into the sky, and then using I think elf waves or some sort of radio frequency hearing effect, that they would make the Iraqi people think that God was actually talking to them. And they wanted to use this to encourage them to overthrow Saddam Hussein, okay? And that was, what, 30-something years ago? And so a lot of people, that's what they're talking about. There's videos like this going viral on Twitter from people, you know, trying to either fool people that this is Project Blue Meme, they're already doing it, or showing kind of what that would actually entail. But if they're going to pull this off, the White House is going to have to hire a new press secretary, because Karine Jean-Pierre just isn't going to be able to sell this to the American people.
Why is the American military shooting something out of the sky over Canada?
Because it's part of NORAD. There is the NORAD is part of like it's a what you call a coalition, a consortium,
a pact of nations.
A pact,
okay.
Exactly. And so that's why we were able to do that. Again, we didn't do it on our own. We did it clearly in step with Canada.
We did it in step with Canada.